Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Episode 2, Season 3 of the Empower podcast, a podcast run by healthcare professionals for healthcare professionals with an overall goal of raising transparency and awareness within the healthcare field with a continuing goal of having legislation passed in the state of Colorado and throughout the whole United States mandating employers to provide what is called an employee wellness program, which will include three things. First is a minimum of 2 wellness days per healthcare professional per quarter. Second is the uploading of funds onto an HSA account that is tax exempt at the federal, state, and local levels, also per quarter. And third is the establishment of a anti-retaliation or retaliation department, whichever one we want to call it, in which healthcare workers can go and mention things that even they feel their employer is not actually handling after they've mentioned it, without fear of retaliation. And again, that is run by a third party. At Empower, we believe in the power of community, diversity, and inclusivity to create positive change and improve society. Our podcast aims to amplify voices that often go unheard, featuring interviews with individuals and organizations who are making a difference in their communities and beyond. Through thought-provoking conversations, inspiring stories, we strive to raise awareness and promote action towards a more equitable and sustainable healthcare realm throughout the world. Join us as we explore new perspectives, challenge assumptions and talk about them, and work towards creating a brighter future for all. Here, do you know any healthcare professionals that would benefit from the podcast? Great. We're on YouTube, we're on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts. Tell them to check us out, please. Also, if they have any feedback, we have the Empower email. That's the word empower, then the letter A as in alpha, 1@proton.me. We're definitely looking for that. Today, we have our guest, Aaron. Aaron, hi. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Definitely. And where are you coming to us from for our listeners?
So I am here in New Orleans, Louisiana.
All right. Well, Air 5 from Colorado.
Air 5.
Yeah, sweet. You got it. I dig it. We encourage our listeners, if they'd like to, again, to share whatever it is they would like to share when it comes to identifying factors on here. It's up to you. We're here just to hear what, honestly, the overall opinion of the community and to just let it be as it is. All right, everybody. I told you where you can find, again, overall podcast. Go ahead and subscribe, hit that bell, follow us on your preferred platform, and stay informed in the ever-changing landscape of healthcare. So sit back, be yourself no matter what, and get ready to be empowered. All right, Aaron, this is part of the show where we give a big thank you to all the members of the healthcare team and throughout your community or anybody's community for all they do. They know they're number one. I'm going to say thank you outright. But is there anything you'd like to say or to anybody in particular?
Yeah, I want to shout out to all the nurses that have been stepping into their negative emotions to be able to start regulating them, because it takes a lot of courage to do that. So everybody that I've taught so far and those that know me so far what I teach, I really want to shout out to those nurses that have been stepping into feeling their negative emotions.
Wow. I'm wow. I usually wait till later, but I'm already feeling empowered. I ask myself that question throughout the first quarter, sometimes half of the show. So you're definitely making me feel empowered with that. Thank you. So, wow, I dig it. Can you tell us a little bit about what brought you into healthcare, Aaron, and what part of the healthcare field do you contribute to?
So I'm gonna start out with a little brief story, a long story short, to kind of give you a background of why I am helping or with the healthcare right now. So let's say around 17 years old, I realized the impact that the impact of her body. My mom was a nurse for maybe around 20 years, but at 17 years old, as a kid growing up, I was seeing how much stress my mom was going through as a nurse. She was working around 2 to 3 jobs in different hospitals. So every time that she came home, she was always stressed. She was burnt out, and she didn't really have much time to attend to us and just be with us and be present. So at 17 years old, one evening, my dad asked me to come into the room. And I went into the room. The room just completely felt heavy. It was just heavy in there. And I looked at my dad. My dad was to the left of me, and my mom was inside the bathroom in front of me. And my dad, he said to me that your mom has lung cancer. She was diagnosed with lung cancer. I didn't really know what that actually meant. I didn't know what to actually expect.
Right.
But when he told me that, it felt like death left his mouth. So at 17 years old, as soon as he told me that, everything just went blur. I couldn't hear anything, and I couldn't really see anything. I just kind of got a little queasy. And after that statement, my mom was going through all the stages of lung cancer. And on the last day, I could just tell it was her last day living in this life. She was on her deathbed, and we were all just sitting around her. And she kind of said something out loud, and we knew what she said, but couldn't make it out. But she wanted to give us one last hug. And somehow, some way, her left side was completely numb, but she was able to lift her arm up and give each one of us a hug. Myself, my little brother, and my dad, and my grandma. And we could just tell that it was her last hug. The next morning came by, and she was gone. So at 17 years old, I'm 29 years old now, after she passed away, I was living in a depressed state all the way up until 3 years ago. And up until 3 years ago, I started working with nurses. I just somehow attracted them into helping them get into physical shape. But then something happened to me where, as I was becoming an entrepreneur helping these nurses, I was also going through the stages of depression, where I was using exercise as an outlet to not feel the grief over my mom after she passed. And what had happened was, there was a time 3 years ago where I meditated for about 1 hour. And long story short, after that meditation, I felt completely euphoric. I felt alive. I was outside of my depression. I no longer had it. And then 2 weeks after feeling a high off of life, I got hit with some really hard depression again. And when I got hit with some really hard depression again, I tried to go back to working out to feel better, and it didn't work. I took a nap, and I woke up feeling worse. So I had to try something new. And after I meditated, I kind of felt more connected with myself. But after 2 weeks, something called to me and said, stay still. So I went ahead and stayed still. And then I closed my eyes, and I allowed myself to feel depressed versus trying to avoid it and suppress it by working out. And what had happened was, this is the stuff that I teach now for nurses and everybody else, is that any strong emotion has a memory tied, or it's tied to a memory from the past. And when I closed my eyes, I felt complete sadness come up for me and a lot of grief. And I had this memory pop up, and it was the same memory, seeing my mom take her last breath. At 17 years old, though, when I saw her pass away, I didn't cry because I had to call my uncle. My dad couldn't do it. So I never really cried over my mom, and I always thought that there was something wrong with me to not be able to cry over my mom. And for this specific moment, 3 years ago, when I closed my eyes, I allowed myself to cry, but something significant happened. I was able to see myself in third person, watching my mom pass away again. But this time, I saw tears rolling out of my 17-year-old self's body and eyes. And as I saw that, I had this urge to say, I see you, I hear you, and I love you. And I was basically the parent to my child that my child needed to feel during that time. My dad couldn't do it. So I gave myself a hug as I was watching my mom pass away. And from that point forward, I was able to feel a sense of relief from the grief that I didn't feel over my mom. And once I felt that, I realized the power of regulating our emotions, present, future, past. Your mind cannot tell the difference. So I was able to regulate it. And since that moment, I've been on this quest, on this journey to teach everybody I walk across or across paths with. And especially with nurses, especially seeing my mom deal with so much stress and so much burdens over her patients and all the other stressful situations. She was holding a lot of those feelings. And most nurses can't even identify what they're actually feeling. So since that moment of myself regulating, I know I've been called, and I know it's my passion to be able to teach these nurses how to regulate their emotions so they can experience less burnout and manage burnout, or they can actually reduce and then manage burnout, where they can show up for themselves at a higher level and treat their patients at a higher level, shifting the healthcare paradigm in a positive way. So that is how I got into the healthcare system. And my goal is to teach as many nurses as I can to shift the healthcare paradigm. One, to be able to bring empowerment back into the nurses, where they can start feeling their negative emotions so they can regulate it into positive emotions. And number two, the patients can get the level of care that they're looking for, so they don't have to keep coming back and taking medications. They feel seen, heard, and loved when the nurses allow themselves to feel seen, heard, and loved first.
Wow. I want to first acknowledge, I don't know how that story went down. You said what it was, and I'm sure there's other areas, but I want to thank you so much for, first of all, sharing that for definitely on here, because that's the story, and it's all out there. And I know that I found out I'm not alone, and I'm letting you know you're not alone either, because you're right. And for me, what I found from what it is you've said, if I can, is it's the patient experience. And it goes skin deep. If you don't take care of the worker bee, you don't get the honey. I guess that's the best way that I can say to work to get it, because we are, nurses do work. Healthcare professionals all do work, and you're up to something, Aaron. And I love it.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. And I appreciate you sharing that. That's, oh, wow. Definitely would like to already have you as a guest again.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh, love it. Okay, well, this is the usual part where I ask if I feel empowered. So I'm going to ask myself again, and the answer is yes, I feel empowered.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Breath. Love it. All right. Here's the juicy question. Question that the community gets to answer from now on. What, in your opinion, is happening in healthcare, Aaron?
How open can I be?
You as open as you want. This is unleashed, unbridled. This is raw. I want politicians to listen to this podcast. You really want me to hear it? I want them to really see what's going on in healthcare. There's a lot. And it's not all bad either. There's a lot, and people have brought up stuff that's beneficial too. For every good, there's the opposite, and I'm throwing it out there. But yeah, whatever it is.
All right, so the healthcare system. Doing this work for about 3 years, helping the front line of nurses be able to help their patients and themselves, but also being able to kind of understand being a patient as well, not for myself, but for my dad, experiencing a lot of health conditions and the way the healthcare system is in the process of helping him. The same way for even close family members and their experiences being in the healthcare system. I've started to see and work with nurses that are giving me the information that is hidden, or information that where either the population wants to be oblivious to it, or it's just too much for them to understand and face the actual facts of what's going on in the healthcare system. So number one, the first thing that I want to say is healthcare system is broken, and big farm companies, everything that the healthcare system is, it's a whole business model. And after countless working with nurses and doing some of my own research, it's very sad to know that most places, there's good intentions out there. There are good practices out there, but for the ones that aren't, they are getting patients to a point where they're always coming back. It's like a subscription on medication, where even for myself as a hypnotherapist or an emotional regulator, body language translator, when when clients come to me, it's a one and done. I have 4 sessions with them and they're gone. So the healthcare system doesn't like that for my part, because they're not going to make any money. So that's number one. The biggest thing is that I know for a fact, even this Facebook group that I posted in, 1,000 of these nurses replied, all not even disagreeing with each other, that the healthcare system is broken, and it is broken, but also, what's the word? I choose to remember. So I'm going to get back to that part.
If I may add, Aaron, it's functionally broken, if that makes sense. Like, it works, yes. But it through its own setup and framework, by being broken, they found a way to make the broken work, but just enough. Yeah, it's almost, and it's data, in my opinion, too. It's insurance companies as well. I'm not here to defame or any of that. I'm here to talk about what I, in my own opinion, as a citizen of the United States and of the world, think is happening in healthcare, and supporting that with my own guest, in case if people need clarification. But yeah, I agree. It is that. And then you said there was more points, so I don't want to interject anymore, too.
Yeah. The second one is corrupt, that I was just talking about, how most of the model of the healthcare system is based on profit. And thirdly, there's a lot of hidden facts about dis-ease, and a lot of symptoms that can be reversed if you work on the body as a unit. And unfortunately, in society, everything is split up to a point where if you want energy work done, you can go to your acupuncture. If you want your bones manipulated, all the physical parts manipulated, you can go to your chiropractor. If you go to the hospital, they're going to prescribe you a lot of medications and plus more. Everything is separate when our body is designed to work as a unit. And since everything is so separate, it takes a long time to find the healing that someone actually needs. And what I've seen over the past 3 years and the mentors that I worked with, you can even look up Dr. David Snyder as one of the biggest ones, is he does a lot of neuroenergetic healing, meaning that you get your mind and body to work as a unit. If you know how the nervous system works, working as a unit, giving your nervous system something to work with, you can actually reverse a good amount of symptoms. And I know, since you said I could be free on this one, I'm going to probably get a lot of...
You can be free. That's one of the points of Empower, is it's the voice. It's the voice of thousands, because, believe it or not, one thing I'm finding here, Aaron, is one of the people that come on here, they're being the voice of hundreds, if not thousands. So I want to acknowledge and thank you for doing that, because stepping up to the plate and being on the court versus being in the stands and having knowledge, you're on the court and you're committing action right now. Okay, versus people who, they have the knowledge and they may know it all. They may even have the most amount of money, but some of the poorest people I know, all they have is money. Bob Marley, throwing that one in. But it's true,
nice.
But yeah.
So I'm going to go even deeper to a point where the reason why I do and teach emotional regulation to nurses, because the nurses that I've been there for a long time, they know exactly what's going on and know what can be done. For example, I have a client who's been nursing over 30 years now, and when she first started in her nursing career, she found this article, and I forget exactly what the article was on, so I'm just going to jump into the story a little bit, but she basically read the article. It was a case study, and that case study had a cure for AIDS or HIV, something like that. And she went up to her doctor that was working at that time and was like, hey, look what I found, And he looked over it and was like, hey, come into my office. Closed the door behind her and says, you cannot show this to anybody here, because if you did, I would lose my job and I would lose my business. So the reason why I tell you that story is because there's a lot of information that is actually out there where it is proven where most dis-ease can actually be reversed. And the thing is, presenting this even like 3 months ago, there's a lot of people that did not like what I said. But if you only choose to look for what doesn't work, that's all you're going to find. But if you choose to look for what does work, you're going to find it. Do the extensive research.
Yeah.
Now, the practice that I do is results-based. I mean, now I'm starting to record all the data, so I have it and probably keep it in the personal files for right now.
Mm-hmm.
So even working with my body language coach, even working with Dr. David Snyder, it's out there. I mean, he was able to do emotional regulation, neuroenergetic healing to reverse some of it, and he does it as a unit, meaning that we work on the body and mind as a unit, and when you do that, then change can happen a lot faster versus separating it. Right. Our body works as a unit. You can't separate. If you go to talk therapy for 30 years, and here's a framework that people can start to understand, actually, is your mind. I have 3 concepts to share here. Concept number one, your mind cannot tell the difference between something you imagine versus something that already happened. For example, for those that are listening, if you were to think of a past memory, go ahead and think about it right now. Bring a past memory up. Notice that you're going to feel the feelings in your body come up. And once you got that, I want you to think of a future outcome. Could be positive or could be negative. But notice you're going to feel the feelings that come up in your body. So with that said, concept number one, your mind cannot tell the difference between something you imagine versus something that already happened. So if you're always talking and not knowing how to understand and actually regulate your emotions, but you're talking about your past trauma, your body is experiencing it as if it's happening again, and it's reconditioning your body to feel that pain. And another thing, concept number 2, notice that when you are feeling the feelings in your body, it shows up in certain areas. And when it shows up in certain areas and you continue to feel those feelings even unconsciously, it's going to impact a part of your organs or wherever the emotion is showing up. And emotion is just energy in motion. So wherever that emotion, that feeling from that emotion is showing up on your body, then let's say it's your small intestines. Your small intestines are going to start producing a lot of grief if you're not feeling it. And when it's produced a lot of grief, your small intestines go into at ease into dis-ease because it's producing too much of it and you're not regulating it. And that's where doctors come out with Crohn's disease. So grief shows up there in that area. And if you're not able to regulate that emotion, understanding concept number 1, then you'll see oftentimes when you start doing it, the symptom goes away because you got to the cause. When you get to the cause, the symptom goes away. The symptom actually changes into a negative to a positive symptom. So there's a lot of psychosomatic work that's being done here, but it's not being told and conveyed as much into the public.
No, you're right. I mean, I was educated on it in school. I mean, I can tell you from my own experience, I don't remember it all. Obviously, it was nursing school, but I mean, you're right. You're up to something too. I mean, this is, I definitely feel you're at the forefront as a pioneer into this area. I know I can definitely share here too I attended the Psychedelic Science Conference, so that in conjunction, because I don't believe psychedelics should be used by themselves solely at this time. I think definitely especially if the overall government is involved, I think with conjunction therapy and with the medical system, if that's the way that it is to be. But yeah, and I think any research or anything that comes out of it should be readily available to the public. Yep. That's one of the things I was looking at. That's a whole other initiative, and I'd love to have you back on and talk about that, because I feel like you're definitely there. But yeah, I guess for me, is there any, and I think I feel like you already definitely did, but if anybody's looking into going into the line of work, I know you said it's been 3 years, and best of luck to you in the future as well. That's awesome. If there's any empowering pieces of advice for someone looking to kind of go into that line of work, and then after that, I'd like to bring everybody back.
Yes. So I believe in a world where you feel all emotions, not just a positive one. And the reason for that is because if everything starts with a feeling and ends with the feeling, then why have we not been starting there? If you think about it as a key word right there. Everything that you get in your life, if you want to know what you've been thinking about, take a look at the results in your life. The reason for that is there's a sequence of events that happen. Especially this should be something that you should know, because if you're not aware of your negative habitual thoughts, then you're going to be oblivious to everything in your life. And this is going to be a point where you have to start taking ownership for all the things that are happening in your life right now, because you can start, once you start taking ownership, then you can start changing your life. But if you don't know what's actually going on, how are you supposed to know what to change? So if you just understand, I want to give this concept here as well, this frame by frame, is that everything that you get in your life ends with the feeling and starts with the feeling. So if you have a thought, okay, once you have that thought process creates an image in your head. Just like I asked you to think of a memory or a future, you have an image pulled up in your head. That image in your head is going to influence energy and motion. It's going to influence an emotion in your body. If you have a negative thought, a negative image, you're going to have a negative emotion. How much can you do with that negative emotion? And what times in your life can you remember what you did with that negative emotion? Most likely you would overeat, you will feel secluded, you will isolate yourself, you can't do much with it. And then what are the actions that you get? So the emotions put you into action. The actions, like I said, you might be overeating, and the results that you get in your life is becoming overweight, more burnt out as a nurse, just feeling sluggish. So if you're aware of it now, then it's going to be a lot easier to just be aware first. Now you can start having some positive thoughts, positive images in your head, positive emotions. Those positive emotions are going to start allowing you to become your best version of yourself, because you're going to feel inspired to eat better, exercise more, do the things that you love to do that you have been putting off since you started caregiving. And then as a byproduct of that, your energy is going to start being a lot better. You're going to experience less burnout. So I share this with you because when you start having positive thoughts, positive emotions, and you're aware of it, then you can start changing your life and impacting the patients that you're with. And it's easier said than done right there, because it does take courage. Most people say it will take time, but it does take courage to help you allow change to happen faster. So if you're having negative habitual thoughts and you're feeling resistance trying to think positive thoughts, that's because you have a belief there that is it's your negative habitual thought. So that's where, when you have a negative habitual thought, image, emotion, then you get to regulate that emotion to have a positive habitual thought. And we can go into that more next time we have a podcast, but I just wanted to share that because not a lot of people are aware of how emotions manifest in the body. And when they start to become aware of it, they can ask themselves, what was I just thinking about? Because then, too, there's so many things that are going on in our life now where our attention span is so small, we're not even aware of our thoughts. Once we are aware of our thoughts, aware of our emotions, because emotions move us to doing the things that we do in our life. But if there are habitual thoughts coming in, it's going to influence negative emotions, and a lot of people are going to continue to feel stuck when they do not have to be a slave to their emotions anymore. And I say slave to their emotions because the client that I just helped with regulating her emotions, she finally feels free. She says, I no longer have to feel a slave to my emotions. And now that she's seen, heard, and loved herself on the parts that have been hidden for so long because any trauma, significant things that happened in the past, she feels love. Wow. And now she can walk into the hospital being able to touch anger, stress, anxiety with love. And now the patients start to feel seen, heard, and loved, where they feel empowered.
Wow. And then it influences the overall patient experience, and then the nurses, and then everybody else is a part of it. This is, wow. I love it.
Butterfly effect.
Yep. I dig it. Well, you've already started to push down the first domino, so let's keep watching. You want to go ahead and bring everybody back with the quote, and then we'll go ahead and close, Aaron.
Yes. Here's a beautiful quote for y'all. I am not here to teach you. I am here to love you. And love will teach you.
Wow. And who's that? Do we know? Is that anonymous? Do we know who that's? I love it.
You know what? I really hope I find out.
Me too. I'll keep looking too, Aaron. I love it. Thank you for that. Thank you, everybody, for being here for episode 2 of season 3. And we look to have you back on here, Aaron. Thank you all very much. Bye for now.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye-bye.